This section of the course is for absolute beginners, someone who has never held a punch needle before, or someone who might feel a little bit insecure and wants to freshen up on everything that is on a need-to-know basis to make this rug. We'll be practicing on an embroidery hoop, because in that way I can easily show you the front and the back and what is happening on both sides, but you don't need an embroidery hoop. In this case, you could also practice on your gripper strip frame if you have got one. If you have really not punched anything before, I would really advise to practice before you start on your rug. You want to feel confident before you start a large project like this. So it's very easy, just draw some shape and practice everything I'm going to explain to you in a minute. So let's dive right in. So to explain the essentials of punch needle, we're just going to use a few things. We're using a hoop, we are using some monk's cloth, which is a cloth especially suitable for punch needle, and I'm using these pliers, but a flat head screwdriver will do. We want to put the monk's cloth into the hoop, which is very simple. Just put it over here, make sure the lines in the fabric are straight, put the outer ring over it, make sure it's unscrewed enough, and push it in. So now you would think, okay, that's it. But if you leave it like this, then you will have a lot of trouble punching. It's not taut enough and it will easily flip out. So what we want to do is, using a screwdriver, to fasten it a little bit at the top and then start going around on all sides and pulling on the fabric like this. Just pull with your thumbs, hold the fabric and pull it inwards. So you grab a little bit of the fabric and just pull it, making it taut like that. Just go all the way around. Make sure the outer ring is still fixed. And then take your pliers again and make sure you cannot go any further, so that it's really closed like that. And if you want to be extra sure, you can just go on, put another round in, like that. So this is very important for punch needle. You want your fabric to be very taut and fixed in place. That will make it so much more enjoyable to punch. Now we're just using three things. We have our punch needle, we have a threader, and we have some yarn. So this is a punch needle. We have a handle and we have a hollow needle. So we want the yarn to go through the hollow needle, and for that we need the threader. So at the tip of the needle you will find a hole and also a way in to the hollow needle. So we want to thread the needle by taking the tip of our threader and pushing it through the hole here. And then we also want to take it into the needle. So from the hole into the needle. Then push it all the way through until it comes out the other end. You will find a loop here. Then you can take your yarn and thread the loop like that, and then pull it all the way through like that. So now your needle is threaded. You can pull at the end a little bit to make sure this tail is not so long. We only need a little bit like that. So that's it for threading the needle. can put our threader aside until we have to change yarn or color or anything. So we're going to take our hoop and our punch needle. So first of all, you hold the punch needle like you would a pen, for example. You take up your hoop. You don't want to leave it on the table because that won't work. You have to pick it up and you can just punch in anywhere you like. You don't have to pay attention to where the holes are. So now you have a little tail sticking out here. In case of this hoop, you could pull out the tail so that it's on the back side. And now you can start punching. So punching is very simple. Just hold it like this, pull the needle up, graze the fabric and move it forward, and then push it back in. Pull the needle up, graze the needle forward, and push it back in. You can just continue like this. It's really actually quite simple, but there are a few rules that you have to obey. One of them being that your yarn has to always have slack. It always should be able to flow through the needle with absolute ease. Nothing can obstruct it. You cannot lean on it, not even a little bit. You have to pay attention that there are no knots in your yarn. Sometimes there is a knot. That's very normal with yarn. So that could be obstructing your needle if you're having trouble. So always make sure that you pull enough on your yarn so that you have a lot of yarn just laying there, having all the space it needs without you leaning on it. That's rule number one. Rule number two, you should only pull up your needle until you reach the fabric. So not like this. Because if you do that, you will get really weird stitches like this. And that's not what we want. We want them to lay flat on the fabric like that. So when you pull up your needle, make sure that the needle tip is still grazing the fabric. Then you move it forward a little bit and push it back in. So don't pull up your needle too far. That is rule number two. Rule number three is when you push it down as far as you can. Make sure the handle is touching the fabric every time. So pull it up, not too far, graze the fabric, and push it back in as far as you can go. That's rule number three. So we've got keep slack on the yarn at all times. Don't pull up your needle too far. Graze the fabric and push the needle in as far as you can go. Then rule number four, that's actually the last essential one, is that you have to rotate your needle in the direction you're going in. So as you can see, when I come up, the stitch forms behind the needle. So I'm going that way, and behind the needle the stitches will form. So when you rotate and you want to go, for example, in the other direction, you always have to make sure that you rotate your needle with it. And you do this while the needle is still in the monk's cloth. So when you come up, it's still in there a little bit. You want the opening to face the direction you're going in. And then you can go that way. And some more. And some more. And some more. And now I want to go the other direction. So I'm going to turn my needle, pull it up, and then go in that direction. Like that. So what happens on the other side? So on the other side, we've now made loops. When you pull up your needle too far, you will see that your loops will start getting smaller and they won't be in there very well. And that's not what you want. In this case, I've also made quite big stitches. The length of the stitch from here to here is quite long, and that's why the stitches or the loops are quite far apart, as you can see right here. So you can make smaller stitches, and that will make a difference in the appearance on the other side. Let me just show you. Like that. There you go. So now they are very close together. So that's what happens when you make smaller stitches in length like that. So let's take this out. As you can see, that's very easy. So you can always start over if you're not happy with a part you've done. And then you can simply stretch the fabric like this in different directions to make sure that these holes disappear again. And you can just start over on the same bit. This is totally fine. So that's really nice about punch needle. You can always decide that you want a different color, then take it all out and put in a new color. But now you might be wondering, okay, but if I can just easily pull this out, won't I be able to pull out all of my work all the time? And how is it going to stay in place when I make an entire rug? Well, I will explain it to you. So we have a patch here, for example, and we're just going to punch it. So on the other side, we have very cute little loops. And these are all being grabbed by the threads of the fabric. So they are pinching on these loops and they are holding them in place. And when we put more and more loops in one place, this is going to be so densely packed that we won't be able to pull it all out as easily as I've just showed you. Of course, when we really want to, you can always from this side pull out things from your punch needle work. But when you don't do that and just have your rug on the floor like this, nothing will happen. You can pull on these loops and nothing will happen. And it won't just fall out. It is all tightly packed. You really have to intentionally take a stitch and start pulling on it. So with a knitted sweater, if you start pulling on a thread specifically in your sweater, that's not going to help. That's going to make a hole in your sweater as well. That's actually kind of the same. So don't worry about stitches falling out when you punch the right way, like I showed you, putting your handle all the way to the fabric every time. You make sure that these loops are all being grabbed by the monk's cloth. So now I want to show you how you can fill in a pattern. So for example, when we have some areas like this, how do we go about it? So there are two ways basically to fill up an area like this. You can go up and down, or you can go around and around. So you first outline the area and then you go in circles all the way until you reach the middle. So in my case, in this specific shape, I would advise to go around and around. Sometimes it's better, like maybe in a square shape, to go back and forth. You could also first outline an area to get a very clean shape and then go back and forth like that. So that's really up to you what you prefer to do. So let me show you how that works. So you just punch in somewhere on the line like that. I'm going to pull this to the back, but remember on the gripper strip frame you're just going to let it sit there In the video tips and tricks, which is just a few tabs below this one, I will explain some more about the sizing of the stitches. So normally the outline stitches will be a little bit smaller than the fill-in stitches, but I will explain that more in that video, and that's also more tailored to the rug pattern. So I think that makes it unnecessary for me to explain it here as well. So we're just going to go around, keeping in mind all the rules that I've told you, and just follow the shape. So make sure to rotate your needle in the direction you're going in, to have slack, and punch all the way through. So it's really very simple. All right. So now we're going to make the next row of stitches just beside this one. So we're going to just pull it up and just take our needle a little bit to the side and push it back in here, and just make a new row of stitches. So what I'm doing here is I'm making my stitches right beside this one. I'm not going to push it in next to it to make sure it's really well next to the other one, because that's basically pushing in the stitch here, and that's not really helping. We're just going to let that sit here and just go right beside it like that. And another tip may be that you can lay bricks. So I've got my stitch here, and then the other stitch is going to go in the middle of this one, right beside it. So in the middle of this one, right beside it, in the middle. So that way you get this brick pattern, and that will make sure that the other side, which is going to be the front of your work, the loops are the front, will fill up really nicely. So you've got a loop here, and then one like in the middle next to these two. And that's just filling it up instead of having like these rows of stitches. You get a really nice filled up area. So let's do that. Even though I don't always pay attention to doing that exactly, because eventually it will all fill up anyway. This is a way to do it really neatly. So let me just show you how you can also go up and down. So I get here, for example, and now I want to go up. Then you can easily use the lines in the monk's cloth to follow so that you're going straight. So I have to rotate my needle. Yes, there it is. And then I'm just going to go up like that. And then I'm going to rotate it the other way, and I'm going to go back in the middle of this one. And it's basically the same thing. So next to the other stitch, and just go up and down. And you don't really have to pay attention where you punch. You could count the holes in the fabric to make exactly the same size stitches if you like. So over here it might be a little bit messy sometimes, but remember, this is going to be the back of your work, and the other side is going to be the front. And then you can just continue like this. So at first it may seem that these are all very far apart and it's not going to fill up very nice, but you will notice that when you fill up the entire thing, it's going to become more and more dense, because all the loops will start pushing on each other and it will look very nice. So I've filled up most of my circle here, and I just wanted to show you how lovely. It's filling up and really filling in the area, so there's no gaps or anything. As I said, the loops are really coming together when you fill it more and more. So I also wanted to show you that when you're finished with an area, you can easily hold it like this, especially when you have a hoop, and you can take a little bit out here and take your scissors and just snap it off like that. So now it's loose and you can take out your punch needle and you're left with a little tail, which you now can easily snap off at the same height as the rest of them, and it will disappear in between the rest of the loops. So that's all done, and over here you could also snap this off like that. Okay, so this is how to fill up an area. Then there's one more thing I wanted to show you, and that is that you can adjust this punch needle and what that does actually. So I've now made loops at this setting. So I've got 4 slots left on the right side here. So I can now rotate my needle, which will make it go out of the slot here. And I can just adjust it going this way or that way, depending on where I want to go. And then click it in another slot. So when I pull on it all the way, so don't pull it all out because it's very difficult to get the whole needle back in. So make sure you still leave a little bit here, but there are 7 different slots available. So the smallest one right here, so you just go over it a little bit until you hear a click. There it was. So this makes a very small needle. I actually never use this setting because your loops will be so small. I don't really believe that works. I think I only use the last 5, perhaps sometimes the 6th one, but not really. So I've just used this one. So let's make longer loops, and then I have to put it in this direction. For example, leaving 1 slot open. So that makes for quite a longer needle. And what that does is make longer loops. So let me show you next to these. So these were set leaving 4 slots open on the right side. So let's do that. There you go. That's quite a difference, as you can see. So you can play with that. You can make really textured pieces with punch needle, varying the length of your loops and making a very interesting look. So just wanted to give you that. There are also these Oxford punch needles. They are in a fixed size, so you can get different sizes with different length punch needles. So you can also make different length loops, but for each different length you would need a new punch needle. And with this punch needle you can do it all. So that's really nice. So you've now learned everything you need to know to make this rug. So the absolute basics of punch needle. Of course there is a lot more to learn, but at this point I don't want to flood you with information which is going to make you feel dizzy maybe. I just want you to feel confident in starting punch needle and to start a project like this rug. But know that there is more to learn about materials, especially different fabrics you can use, different kinds of yarn you can use. On my YouTube channel you can actually find quite a few videos about specific topics like this, and I teach you other things you can learn about punch needle if you're interested. But what I've taught you right now is what you need to make this rug. So start practicing.